What up guys, it's Caleb here, and this video has been requested a couple of times and you guys would like to know about who do I follow as a designer and who can you potentially learn from. So there are 5 designers that are my favorite and I will see them as my mentor because without this designer I wouldn't be able to do what I do right now. So I think these are the designers that I think every single designer, web designer or UI and UX designer should follow. And so without further ado, let's just jump right in. And so the first designer that I would like to introduce to you guys is called Blast. And I followed Blast when I first get into web design. And what's good about Blast is that he had a lot of PSD or a templates file that he created to help out the younger designers. So when I first getting started, I just basically go to his Dribbble page, or he has a website, and just go there and download a bunch of his work and just study how he use color, how he use fonts, how he use padding sizes and all of these things. So you can see that if you go to his Dribbble page, a lot of his older work you can just basically download and put it on Photoshop and just use it and see how the design was made. So I definitely learned a bunch of things from his just by downloading and studying his work. So if you're newer to the game, then definitely I would say check out Blast. He doesn't have a lot of new work right now, but I mean like his older work, you can still learn a bunch of things from his older work. So moving on, the next one is called Widget. So it's not a designer, but it's a design team. And what I like about them is if you want to study, how design team work with big client, because they do a lot of project with the Fortune 500 companies. So this is one of the biggest, I think one of the biggest design agency in the US right now, and their work is just super standard and super good. I don't know how they do it, but a lot of their project, I mean, even though they have a big design team, their project are very high standard. So when I was, just still learning in my maybe like first or second year into the web design space, I just see them as a Bible. Like whenever I get stuck, I would just think about, what would this guy do in the situations and how can I solve this? And I just go to the design and look for the solution. So going through some of their work, you can see, how detailed process are with all of their projects, right? So you can see how a project is sketched out, and where will these ideas come from, their research and all of these things into each of the projects, like the color scheme as well, the typography and all of that, how do they create UI like this. So I would say, after I study their work, my design skill just improved by a bunch, right? Like how can I organize images and put it with typography, right? You can see that, thin fonts, standard serif fonts, and all of these kind of visual things. You can just basically learn a bunch, and I believe that if you just go through their work, you can definitely benefit a lot from their design. Man, I even if I look at that, right, I don't think I can. I'm still very far from this level. So then again, check out all of their projects. I think they have like 40 of them, and if you have time, just go through them from time to time. You can see what big design team out there are doing and how can you learn from that. And the third designer that I would like to introduce to you guys is called Harad. I don't want to butcher his name, but he is the founder of UNO. And before, when I follow him, he is still having a personal account, and then he turned his personal account to called UNO. So UNO is now one of the biggest companies on Dribbble. So I think the most popular teams, or like the second most. But yeah, he doesn't have a lot of newer work right now, which is a shame. But what can you say, right? When you have a successful design team, you don't have to do all the design work anymore. And I believe that this is the dream of designers, us, right? Creating a very successful design team, and you're good to go, and you only work on project that you like, and that is what he's doing right now. But if you want to study his work, if you go to Dribbble and just basically scroll to the bottom of UNO, you can still see a lot of his work, and basically all the older project is from him because that was his personal account before. So what I learned from him is that the use of white space. So if you look at his project, he used very big white space between sections, and that is one thing that I still use a lot right now. I would say almost like 60% of my design method or design skill techniques are from hand drawn. So I basically learned a bunch of things from him, and the grid system, how he used padding between the grid. I just download a bunch of his design, put it on Photoshop, and do all the studying that I mentioned in another video. So I learned a lot of things from his work, and he's one of my biggest mentor. I think 4 or 5 years back, because these are the times that I really kind of find out the whole thing about web design and the whole thing about UI and UX, and he has a lot of product design work as well. So definitely go check out UNO, scroll to the bottom and find out what he did before for the company, and see like this kind of hero section, right? It's just very spacious, and when you land with it, you don't feel like you're choked by reading up the information because everything is so spaced out. Look at this, big thin font, and then contrast with the all cap kind of letters down below it. It's just beautiful. The way he play around with typography and all that is just very beautiful. Look at how clean the design is, right? Big white, and then with some kind of emblems behind it, and all of this is animated as well. Just very polished, very detailed design work that I just personally just love his style. And he used to work for Google a lot. I mean, I think Google is one of his clients before, so he did a lot of work for Google, and just beautiful work. And again, right, I think one of the good thing about him as well, I think he's self-taught. I just watched one of his kind of introduction videos that he did with another agency, and people just interview him, and he mentioned that he's self-taught. So definitely, if you're self-taught, you can be that good as well. If you're that good, then you can figure out the whole thing. You can create this side trend. So definitely follow him. I think he's one of the best. And next is a designer called Julian, and I learned, I mean, a lot of my video, if you watch my channel, a lot of kind of example work that I pull from Julian's work, and I don't have to say too much about it. Just look at that. It's just beautiful, right? Like the way he uses color and everything just mashed together, just very beautiful. And if you look at his work, right, what I learned from a lot of his stuff is the use of color, and it's just very beautiful way to mix color together, green with yellow and pink and all that. And also his typography is very good as well. A lot of time, right, if he has a live website, I'll basically just go to the website and see what kind of font that he used in the project, and I'll just copy that color scheme, whatever. I steal a bunch of design from Julian. It's super great, and definitely check out his Dribbble page, and I bet that you guys are gonna learn a bunch of stuff from it. And the last designer that I would like to talk about is called Mason. And also, by the way, Julian is also self-taught, just putting it out there. And Mason is a designer that used to work with Julian, and that's why I know them together. And one thing that I want to point out about Mason's work is the detail, the attention to detail in a lot of his design. So if you just go through, he doesn't have a lot of work for some reason. I mean, he used to be a lot more popular than what he is on Dribbble right now. But man, seriously, if you look at his work, you can see that how he put the little detail into his design. This kind of stroke font, and then the gradient going from left to right, and little bold icon in the middle part, the spaces and all that. And then use this little, like, look at that, right? Like the images background a little bit faded out, and then this little pattern on the backgrounds. The fonts, how he structured the font. This one is a little bit going to the left hand side, and then this one push right a little bit to have the space for this typography. Contrast with a brush stroke. Also, look at this kind of circle, right? Normally, I would just put a circle behind it, but he put kind of like a shiny ring around the play button. It just, this kind of attention to detail is just great. Look at this as well, right? A little bit, tiny bit of a shape behind the link to kind of pop it out a little bit better. So little detail, right? All of these little background detail, man, like I'm just amazed when I'm looking at his work. And again, right, all of this kind of little finest detail, I learned a bunch of stuff from Mason. So definitely follow him. I think his again, right, his work for Mixpanel and his other project, it's just beautiful. I mean, it's like when I look at his work, it's like a piece of artwork that I'm just going through, right? It's just basically just amazing. So that's it for the video. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. I'm gonna have a lot of these designers in the description link down below, so you guys can follow them and learn something from them as well. And I'll talk to you guys next time. Cheers.